Hey everyone, Lachlan Harmon here for Live Tech Australia with a review of Canon's latest entry into the mirrorless market, the EOS M3. Canon's first steps into mirrorless were more of a stumble, with many critics panning both the M1 and its follow-up the M2 as being entirely lackluster devices. While at their core they were serviceable cameras, they lacked the articulating screens, built-in flashes, and manual controls of some of their competitors, and I am glad to say that Canon has finally rectified the situation with the M3. The body of the M3 goes a long way towards bringing Canon in line with its competitors in the mirrorless market, introducing a slightly better, more ergonomic grip on the right-hand side, which houses a custom function button as well as a custom function dial around the shutter. They've also included two more dials also on the right hand side, slightly further up on the body, which brings you a manual control for both camera mode and exposure compensation. While particularly the mode and exposure compensation dials feel a little bit stiff at first, much stiffer than they look at first sight, I found that it was quite easy for me to get used to them, and before long I was able to manually control shutter speed, ISO, aperture, and exposure compensation all without looking away from the viewfinder. Speaking of which, the new LCD screen is kind of hit and miss, but mostly hit. The viewfinder's color rendition does seem a little bit off, and I found it very quick and easy to distrust the LCD screen in both live view and playback modes, meaning that my laptop or a tablet with an SD card reader became a very common companion with me on photo shoots with this camera. I also found that the screen lagged from time to time, particularly when I was trying to readjust focus from one subject to another within the frame. The display just didn't seem to know what it should be displaying, and so had a little bit of trouble catching up with what the lens was pointed at. But it was a very intermittent issue. I'm assuming it's a bug that Canon will probably be able to fix with a firmware update coming in the future, and it so far hasn't prevented me from taking any of the shots that I wanted to get. On the plus side, the screen now rotates 180 degrees rather nicely, meaning that you have some tilt options for both high and low angle shots, as well as a selfie screen. While the selfie screen is probably going to be great for party-loving photographers, it doesn't really do well for people who are trying to use video as part of a one-man crew. While the selfie screen is great for trying to initially focus on someone's face for a piece to camera, it doesn't play well at all with external microphones that you mount using the included hot shoe. The selfie screen, however, does come in handy if you're trying to set up for a self-portrait, meaning that your next profile picture is probably going to be easier to capture and it's probably going to look better. Part of what makes those selfies so great is the sensor that Canon is including with the M3, a 24.4 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor with a Digic 6 processor, which promises better autofocusing and low light performance. Through my testing, I found that the M3 does in fact have much better low light performance than the EOS M1, with images being more than usable at ISO 3200, serviceable at 6400, and even kind of decent at ISO 12800. However, you are still going to get artifacting if you're using it at such high ISO, so if you are looking for a decent low light performer, I would highly recommend looking elsewhere. Also, Canon definitely weren't messing around when they said that they were going to improve autofocusing with the M3. I have found that it is much quicker and easier to use than the M1 when focusing on subjects and shifting focus between shots. For users upgrading from the M1 or the M2, honestly, one of the best features of the M3 is that you are still able to use all of your EFM lenses with this camera. So if, like me, you went out and you splurged on a 22mm pancake lens, a 55-200 telephoto lens, or the 11-24mm ultra wide angle lens, you're still going to be able to use those lenses with the M3. And for owners of other Canon DSLRs, you're going to be able to use your regular EF glass here as well, using a relatively inexpensive adapter. But first-time camera owners should beware that there are only 4 EFM lenses offered by Canon to date, and with no sign of other lenses coming on the horizon, it might be wise to consider that when thinking about purchasing the M3. At the end of the day, the EOS M3 is a perfectly serviceable mirrorless camera from Canon, which unfortunately still pales in comparison to some of its competition. Cameras like Sony's A7 Mark II or the Olympus OMD EM10 offer better focusing, a higher quality sensor, better range of lenses, and in some cases even 4K recording. So for the first time camera buyer, I would have to recommend looking elsewhere in the mirrorless marketplace for your first buy. But for users looking to upgrade from the M1 or the M2, I could happily recommend the Canon EOS M3, and I would even go so far as to recommend it to experienced Canon DSLR users who are looking for a slightly smaller body that they can use with their existing lenses as a companion camera for when they go out shooting. Anyway, that was my review of the Canon EOS M3. If you liked the video or you found found it informative, make sure you head down below and hit that like button, subscribe to Live Tech Australia, and let us know in comments what you think of the M3 and the mirrorless marketplace in general. But that's it for now, so for Live Tech Australia, I'm Lachlan Harmon, have a great day/evening, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.